What's going on, guys? My name is Wade with TechDaily, and in this video, we're going to be unboxing the brand new Samsung Galaxy A31. Yes, Samsung is back at it again with another new A-series device for 2020, and this one is actually pretty interesting. It's a cheaper option than the A51 and A71, obviously. It's sort of their mid-range A-series device, which the A-series itself is a mid-range line of phones anyway. It's a little weird to explain it like that, and yes, Samsung just has so many A-series phones coming out right now, but this phone actually offers a lot of what those higher priced A-series devices have, in addition to some unique upgrades and features of its own that make this phone special. So if you're looking for a device that's maybe a little cheaper, but still actually does pack a whole lot, this might be the phone for you. It is, of course, the successor to last year's A30 and A30s phones, which were incredibly popular devices, even here in the US. So I'm excited to see what upgrades were brought to this phone, and I suspect that once again, this is a device that's really going to be popular. So enough talking, let's go ahead and unbox this thing and see what the new A31 has to offer. Now, right now, this phone is only just starting to be sold by various retailers, so price isn't exactly certain yet. I was able to pick this phone up for around $260, but I suspect when it's all settled, the A31 will retail for under $250. I got mine in Prism Black, but the phone right now also comes in blue, red, and white, so lots of color options to choose from. Inside the box, the first thing we get is a little package of paperwork. Nothing too exciting here, but you also get a nice clear plasticky rubber case. This is great. You can keep your new phone protected right out of the box, and I appreciate Samsung throwing this in there. Digging a little deeper inside the box, we also just get the regular old 15-watt standard USB wall charger for charging, along with a regular old USB-C to USB-A cable for plugging the phone in. And Samsung also decided to throw in a pair of wired earbuds. These are not great, to be honest, but still, it's nice that they're at least in there. So with all that stuff out of the way, here is the new Samsung Galaxy A31. Now, right away, I think you'll notice that as far as the design and the form factor, this device looks very similar to the A51 and A71, which both launched earlier this year. But there are actually a few key differences. One thing that remains the same, though, is the build materials. This is a phone that's constructed from all plastic, even though it looks like a shiny glass material with some chrome accents. This is the standard with all of Samsung's A-series devices, but honestly, I'm pretty okay with what you get. The phone doesn't feel cheap, which is nice, and the hard plastic material and shiny glossy finish give off a bit of a premium vibe. You've also got that subtle rainbow effect that these A-series phones are known for, and honestly, I think it looks particularly good on this Prism Black one. Also, plastic might be a little more reliable in the long run than glass too if you end up dropping it. I'm pretty okay with the plastic build all in all, and I don't really have any complaints. Up front, this A31 actually sort of has last year's design, which is something I was surprised to see. While the higher end phones like the A51 and A71 got the upgraded Infinity O cutout display and slimmer bezels, this phone stuck with the Infinity U cutout for the camera up top, and the bottom bezels down below, that sort of chin or whatever you want to call it, that's a bit bigger and more prominent as well compared to the side borders. Overall, the design isn't too bad. I think the phone still looks great and holds up in 2020, but I wanted to at least point that out. If you were hoping for a redesign, you'll have to jump up to the A51 or the A71. The actual display, though, is really good. The A31 is a 6.4-inch phone, which, just as a side note, I think is a great size. It's not too big, not too small, certainly usable with one hand, and very comfortable in your pocket, too. The display itself is that really awesome-looking Super AMOLED panel that we've seen on a lot of A-series phones now. And I feel like I always say this, but the displays on Samsung's A-series phones, they are easily the best viewing experience for the price. With a 2400 by 1080 resolution, you aren't going to compete with a flagship device, but what you do get is a phone that's bold, bright, crisp, and overall just looks good from every angle. Now, we aren't dealing with anything new here, so keep that in mind. If you saw the OLED screens on the A51 or A71 already, or even last year's A-series phones, it's all the same technology in setup as far as I'm aware. We don't have any major changes or upgrades, but what you still end up with is a fantastic viewing experience, and like I said, especially for the price. Taking a look around at everything else, this phone is set up just like all the other A series phones. On the side, you've got your volume and power buttons. There's a removable tray for your SIM cards and SD card, so expandable storage is here, which is nice. And across the bottom, you'll find a headphone jack, USB-C charging port, and the one single downward firing speaker. Underneath the display, you've also got that in-screen fingerprint reader. Once again, just a nice touch on a relatively inexpensive device. I do like Samsung keeping this in their phones because I like having an additional unlocking option, even though I do mostly utilize Face Unlock. But it's just nice to have, and while it may not be the fastest or most consistent, it's still something I do appreciate. Across the back, you'll also notice right away that this phone received a huge camera upgrade with a 4-lens setup in that rectangular module. This is something that Samsung has really focused on both their flagships and with their budget A series line of phones, and I'll talk about what's new in just a moment. But before we get into that, I want to go over all of the internal specs this phone packs because there are a few important things to mention. First off, let's talk about the battery because this is one of the more unique aspects specific to the A31. This phone packs a fairly large 5,000 milliamp capacity battery inside, which is bigger than both the A51 and A71. That means that even though you're spending less, you're easily going to outlast the more expensive phones. I think this was a particularly interesting move by Samsung, and for a lot of people who want a phone that lasts maybe a day and a half or more on a single charge, this is a device that they can end up choosing. It's probably the one factor that makes this phone stand out from the other A series phones on the market and some other phones from other brands as well. Inside, the A31 is powered by the MediaTek Helio P65 octa-core processor, paired with a Mali G52 GPU. Now, that's what's in my A31, but depending on where else this phone maybe launches, we could see some other A31 variants. You also have the choice of either 4 or 6 gigs of RAM and 64 or 128 gigs of built-in storage. Overall, I think this phone packs a lot for a relatively inexpensive device. It of course ships with the latest Android 10 update and One UI 2 out of the box, so obviously you have a fast and smooth experience. The P65 processor, of course, isn't a new chipset. We've seen it in some other devices over the last few months now, but I think overall this was a solid choice by Samsung to power this A31. Looking ahead, I will of course put this phone to the test in my full review, but at least as far as for my initial impressions, I think we've got pretty solid internals for a phone that retails for around $250. So let's go ahead and get into the cameras, since I think that's what most people are curious about. Around back, we have obviously a lot of changes. The A31 now packs a quad lens setup, similar to what we do have on the A51 and A71, and it's made up of a 48 megapixel f2.0 main lens, an 8 megapixel ultra wide shooter, a 5 megapixel macro lens for super up close photography, and a 5 megapixel depth sensor. Now, I think this is a killer setup for a phone at this price point. Honestly, it really wasn't that long ago that $200 to $300 phones had just awful cameras that I know made me not want to recommend them, and I'm sure kept a lot of you guys from buying them, but that's just simply not the case any longer. Samsung put a lot of effort into finally offering an awesome camera setup with a lot of features and potential in their budget phones, and it really shows here with the A31. Now, feature-wise, you've got a lot, including obviously the wide angle and macro with those dedicated lenses. There's live focus shots as well, but unfortunately there's no 4K video recording, which is a bummer, and no dedicated night mode either. I'm surprised to not see those there, to be honest, but even with those limitations though, I think this is a great setup, and I'm excited to put this camera to the test. Up front, the selfie camera has also received an upgrade as well. Inside that U-shaped notch is a new 20 megapixel lens. Again, no 4K video or anything special here, just a nice little upgrade that should improve those selfie shots. I'm always pretty critical of Samsung's front cameras, but honestly, with these A-series phones, Samsung seems to have made the necessary upgrades. So at least initially, I like what I'm seeing. A couple other things to note as far as features features and specs. No, this phone does not have any sort of IP or water resistance rating as far as I'm aware, and there's also no wireless charging support either. This mainly has to do with the cheap plastic build and sacrificing some of those extra features. And just as a note, neither of those features is found on any of the other more expensive A series phones either, so if that's important to you, you'll need to look elsewhere. All in all, I think this is a really interesting device, and I suspect it's going to be one of the best-selling A series phones once again this year for Samsung. I'm pretty excited to try it out over these next couple of days. I'm excited to do some comparisons as well, and I'm really happy to see Samsung offering some nice upgrades to their super popular line of budget phones. So there you go, those are my initial thoughts and impressions of the new Samsung Galaxy A31. If I happen to miss anything or got something wrong, or if you have any questions about the phone, feel free to leave a comment down below. I'd love to know your thoughts, of course, and let me know if the A31 will maybe be your next device. But hopefully you guys did enjoy this video. Be sure to follow TechDaily on Twitter and subscribe to the TechDaily YouTube channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys later.